Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme, exploring progressive metal. It can be any kind of metal as long as it's a bit more than your typical border. How do I even y'all know what progressive metal is, right? I don't need to break this down. We're going to be diving into The Ocean or The Ocean Collective. I've had it explained to me a couple of times. I still don't think I understand the difference between the two. I think they just changed their name at one point in time. I don't know. I don't remember which one came first, but Spotify has them listed as The Ocean. That's what I'm going to call them. We're going to check out the track Atlantic from their Holocene album. Let's dive in. Okay, I don't think of grooviness when it comes to the ocean, so this is a bit unexpected.
Yes, this one time you've been bold, but don't you get a big head.
I love that bass tone down there. It's nice.
Don't you get carried away.
The little effects coming in from the sides. Yeah, okay.
You were never ever good enough. Why don't you try harder? If you can understand all the patterns that redound to your detriment. If you can understand all the patterns.
The heavy reverb on the vocals now.
Repeating them. High defeatism. High defeatism.
Dude, that guitar is gritty. And I know when this thing goes big, when it hits the drop, it's going to be. Okay, that's. Yeah, okay. Why is this feeling like a grittier Leprous right now? I'm really digging this. Yeah, that wasn't the drop. It was punchy. It came in strong. But this song has more space to fill, and we'll get there eventually.
Immerse in the dark that you chose to surround you. You're so hurt and so weak, and you're so damn afraid of the truth. And you chew on your pain by denying the past and becoming what used to be honest. Your face
is that sound? Oh, a little bit of trumpet in here too. I think it's drumsticks on like the rim of a snare. But I mean, he could be hitting anything metallic too. But wood on metal, I think that's...
Now I see you in another light. How can you say that you love me when all you see is revenge? How can you say that you love me
Dude, that drum work.
when all you seek is retaliation?
The guitar riff is just light enough. It takes up just enough space to have presence. But it's light, small, thin. Oh, oh, interesting harmonic direction. Oh, oh, the extension. Okay. Oh, snap. That is 4 bars of 4. They just play around a lot with phrasing on it. All right. The vocal layering sells this so much. Dang, man. I had this mixed up too. I was expecting, I mean, it still is kind of post-rocky at times. It's got like a sludge thing going on in places, and it's very atmospherically driven, but there's a lot of moving parts to it too. And I was expecting Cult of Luna for some reason, I think. Just really heavy and overbearing, slow moving progression, slow burns, kind of stuff like that. And we kind of get some of that in here too, but it's just more nuanced in melodic ways that absolutely click with me. Now, I know we have checked out an album from them before, and that worked for me too. But I think this is the first song that I am overwhelmingly enthusiastic about from them. I'm also pretty sure it's the only one off of this album. Yeah, I don't think we've checked out anything else from this album. There's only 8 tracks, so I'm going off the song title here. I could be wrong. None of these look familiar. I gotta, dude, I gotta check this out. This is good stuff. All right, let's dive into why it's good stuff. The song is paced rather well, with lower, quieter, atmospheric sections and heavier, weightier, larger atmospheric sections. They love making atmosphere. We do have some riffs that go along with the lead vocal melodies, but for the most part, all the instruments are there for texture and harmony. They're really building out the emotional atmosphere of the song and the way that it feels, the way that it sounds, the way that it makes you feel. I really love the verse to this. It's quiet, it's calm, it's spacious, but it still feels weighty. There's a lot of open air here. You can tell that there's more room for the song to exist even after we hit that chorus. That first big impactful moment, I even said, that was a big moment, but it wasn't the moment yet. The song still has room to grow. I honestly wish I could explain this. um, when I listen to music, I can perceive the maximum size of like the sphere that the music exists within. And like a lot of this is really tiny. We hit that chorus and it was much bigger, super punchy, big moment, but I felt like there was emptiness on the outside's room for the song to get bigger at. And it does have nothing, yeah, it has nothing to do with volume either. You look at the volume meters, they're maxed out over there during the chorus. There's just something about size that I can perceive. And like there's a lot of things that I've answered it in Q&As, I've answered it in comments below videos, parts of my process that I can put into words, that I understand how I am perceiving and remembering and chronicling music into my mind to bring up later. There are some things though that I can't really explain. And it's not like I'm trying to keep my best secrets hidden away so that no one else encroaches on my territory here. I literally don't understand how it works. And this is one of those moments. I can teach you how to count time signature. I could teach you how to pick up emotion and atmospheres. Uh, I don't know if I could teach you to hear the maximum size of a sound because honestly, I don't understand how it works. But at that moment, I was like, this is big. I know it's going to get better. And just this general pacing, I think, is really strong. Lows building up a little bit. It isn't like stepwise, right? We have a lot of songs that we check out where you have your quiet section and then your loud section. And they're just like, these are the two levels. But here, the ocean has gradual movement. I know I usually use this fluid moment or movement when I talk about um, pacing on songs and fluidity between movements and rising and falling action, but honestly, it's not a great depiction of what happens in most music. It is just we're at this level, then that one, then this one, then that one. But this song has a lot of movement to it. We have rises and we have falling action. The falling action is usually just letting something fade out. It's not super complex. But the rising action is new ideas. These elongated verses that take upwards of 2 minutes each are constantly stacking on new ideas. In fact, the first 3 minutes or so is all about layering up the verse. It allows it to feel like there's growth going on there while still pointing us towards a feeling of anticipation to get to that chorus, that punchy section. Granted, we don't know it's a chorus at the time. It could have just been a slow burn. Eventually, after we add all these things, we're going to hit a peak and we're going to see this new, larger moment to the music. I didn't know which way we were going to go, but we are rising in action, pointing towards something higher. And then moving from this to the chorus, back down to a verse, building back up to a chorus, bringing it back down, and then punching up to this new extreme here for the finale, really bringing in that sludgy post-metal sound. Yeah, yeah, the pacing on this was great. I do think that critically it moves a little slow, but I closed my eyes a couple of times. I just jammed with it. And yeah, this is definitely a song that works phenomenally in a casual setting, just really allowing yourself to be absorbed into the atmosphere and to feel this out as it's going. But there is one thing that is in its favor as far as my listening experience here, a bit more critically, is all of the layers going on. There's always something fresh happening, something new being added, whether it's a new instrumental line, maybe a guitar riff comes in, maybe a new drum pattern, it might be a new timbre too. We had the glockenspiel show up in that first chorus. I don't think we had that ever again. The second verse saw the inclusion of a new percussion idea, which I'm pretty sure was wooden sticks against some sort of metal. It could have been the rim of the snare. It could have been the stand that holds the hi-hat, just kind of hitting the stand back and forth. And it could have been any number of other things too. It could have been an actual instrument rather than just hitting a piece of metal. I don't know, but it definitely sounded like wood against metal, whatever combination that ends up being. That was very cool. There's all these textures that exist too, these sound effects, white noise or a whooshing sound across one side to the other, little digital effects. We had a back and forth happening somewhere in the middle of the first verse where just one sound was ping ponging between the two channels. There's a lot of ways that they keep interesting things happening, not just on a compositional level, but on a sonic level as well. And it allows this to feel like a natural building of ideas. It's not always linearly going up, though. We're not always adding layers. There are times when we remove ideas as well in order to create something that feels like proper growth, a type of breathing rather than linear movement. And this allows the song to feel, at least to me, a bit more natural. Linear movement is fine, but it also creates an element of anticipation. That moment where my brain clicks and says, oh, we're working with 4-bar phrases. 4 bars are up, what's next? 4 bars are up, what's next? And it's just, I begin to expect things. It becomes very mechanical in a sense, and I do this in my own music too. I'm not trying to say that it's a bad thing at all, but particularly in this state of mind where I am actively listening to the music and trying to interpret what it's doing and where it's going and what all that might mean, I do get into a state where I can kind of view it a bit more mechanically or sterile than it should be. And that happens a lot actually with slow burns, where I'll walk away from it with a bit of a negative take based on pacing or direction or length of time. And y'all are like, no, dude, that was a fantastic section. Just immediately took me to a different area and I was, completely involved in it. Yeah. Those sections are done really well in order to work on an emotional level. I don't always engage that way when I do these reactions. So I think it's nice for this to do the slow burn with ways of still keeping me on my toes. It doesn't necessarily make it better of an execution of a slow burn, but it does improve my reaction to it in this particular setting. And I appreciate it. I think it's one of the reasons why I came away from this as positive as I did, why I got into it as much as I did, although also allowing myself to just feel the music throughout this helped a ton too. It gave me some insight that I wasn't getting from a purely analytical perspective on it. Now, we have our low and our high and our low and our high and our low. And then we're going to wrap this up on the big moment. This is just a massive ending. The guitar gets so fuzzy and large, and it's interesting to hear how few layers are in here. Many of the ornamental ideas and textural ideas from earlier on in a track are gone. We have some guitars, a bass, the drums, and multiple vocals. I think this is where a lot of the weight comes from, is sonic weight rather than layered weight. The guitars, like I mentioned, are massive, super sludgy, super fuzzy and distorted, but it's also paired with multiple vocals, where before we had a nicely delivered or very full body delivered clean vocal. I was going to say pure vocal for some reason. I don't even know what that would be. Here we have that vocal style with two other harshes around it. Either that or this dude's harsh is just massive. Um, but the layering of this creates a sound that feels otherworldly almost. Layering the cleans with the harshes already is going to create something that sounds a bit alien. Uh, but the sheer size of it, the reverb thrown on it too, it becomes something wild, something unimaginable. I like that for an ending. It's sort of subversive. Most of this song tried to get away with doing more, and here we actually get a bigger sound by doing less. And the layering of those vocals is something that I think transported me somewhere else entirely. Not to mention the heavy riffs that are going on in this section and the wild drumming, which the drumming in this song was just phenomenal already. The fills were crazy, the rhythms themselves were awesome, and the ornamental little tucking in a couple of notes here and there inside of the traditional pattern that they had going on. Yeah, the drum work was just great. Always a cool flourish happening that I could engage with and listen to and focus on for a second. I do want to point out there at the end, I got a little lost in the time signature. I found it remarkable when I counted the whole thing out, really thinking we were going to be shifting phrasings, which it kind of felt like we were, and technically we are. We'll get into that in a second, but the whole thing is in 4/4. If you were counting that slower 4 that I think I was visually showing with my swaying, you're going to get 4 bars. But if you're counting the faster tempo, which is probably what they were playing at, what they would have envisioned themselves, we're talking about an 8-bar phrase there. What I find interesting about this is that you can feel the accent point on 1 at the beginning of this idea, this 8-bar phrase. We'll stick with 8 just for consistency. You can feel beat 1 of bar 1, emphasis there. But when we get to bar 2, there's not an emphasis on beat 1. There's not an emphasis on beat 2 either. This is how they get you. This is how it feels strange because the emphasis comes later than expected. However, this time through, it comes later again, which we have 2 delays now pushing us even further through. And my brain immediately said, well, we must be going over 4. Are we in 5/4? Are we working with 5 beat bars? Are we working with 6 beat bars? As soon as I try to figure this out, though, we've cut it down. Instead of a group of what might have been 5 twice, we're now working with a group of 4. Oh, we're in 4/4, right? It does this frequently. This is what I was talking about with odd phrasings, is that the emphasized point isn't equal across all of this. And so it creates something that feels like it's completely in flux. Every time that we have another accent point that feels like we're starting this micro idea over again, it's in a different place than last time. It's in a different place than expected. But if you look at the entire 8 bars, you realize we're just working with a 32 beat phrase. pretty straightforward. 8 bars of 4 beats. This is very standard. They're just messing around with where the accent beats are, which changes our relationship rhythmically to it. But yeah, they're just playing in 4/4. It kind of cracked me up because it sounds so different than 4/4 does, and they're really pushing hard against that time field to create their own within the standard meter. Um, so yeah, that's gonna wrap my analysis up, at least on the musical side. I'm ready to dive into some lyrics here, so let's see what's going on there. In this song, we find a narrator who is speaking to someone else and kind of giving them a little bit of, I think, some tough love, letting them know what's going on in their situation and saying, you keep this pattern up, it never works out. You got to try something else. You got to rise up. You got to be better. The first stanza says, this one time you've been bold, but don't you get a big head. Remind yourself what you've been told and don't get carried away. You were never ever good enough. Why don't you try harder? I forgot about this, actually. Everything else, I think, kind of has more of a positive vibe to it, or at least a neutrality. But I forgot that this one said that you were never good enough. Okay, so that kind of, we'll have to reevaluate that in a second. This next one says, though, if you can understand all the patterns, then redound to your detriment. Why do you keep repeating them? I actually had to go look up redound. That's a pretty cool word. It means to come back around. So it says that if you see all these patterns, you understand how every time you do something, it ends up screwing you over. It's to your detriment. Why do you repeat the patterns then? It says that you have high defeatism. It says you immerse yourself in the dark that you choose to surround yourself with. You're hurt and weak and afraid of the truth, so you chew on your pain. You deny the past and be grim what used to be your nest, and you're filled to the brim with guilt that you can't come to terms with. So yeah, he's just saying, you're full of all this pain, anger, you hate yourself. You can't come to terms with the mistakes you've made in the past. You're full of guilt from them. It stops you from moving forward, from improving your life. You're just filled with all this self-hatred that you retreat into a darkness. Things could be better if you just accepted some positivity, but you refuse to do that. Now, here is an interesting line. Well, a couple of lines here. It begins to expose the relationship between the narrator and who they are speaking to. It says, how can you say that you loved me when all you seek is revenge and retaliation? Son, you'll need a radical change. You deserve something better than this, and you're in need of a tactical switch in defense. Now, this word son doesn't necessarily have to mean that we have a father talking to their child. It's not used as commonly today, I think, which this came out in 2023. But son was a common term back in the mid 1900s in the US, at least. Maybe elsewhere. That's sort of where I know it from, at least in pop culture, of just kind of speaking to somebody who is younger than you. Maybe not necessarily always literally younger, could be someone the same age as you, but anytime you're imparting wisdom on someone, you can use this term in that way. But because of this idea, like, how can you say that you loved me? And then using the term son makes me feel like this is a familiar relationship. And he says, but now you're daydreaming for something better than this. And then it ends the song with, but now your daydream is over. So, to me, this is somebody outside of someone else's situation saying, hey, I'm on the outside looking in, but this is what I see. You're in a dark place, you're full of pain, full of guilt, full of hurt. You got to do something different. You keep making these same mistakes over and over again, and it feeds on itself, and you need to try something else so that you can take a step forward. Any of these daydreams that you had where you maybe thought your life was better, you gotta stop dreaming about it. Just do it. It's time to take a step forward, which puts a really interesting twist at the beginning. You were never ever good enough. Why don't you try harder? Especially since it says this one time you've been bold, but don't you get a big head? That kind of sounds like precautionary advice. Yeah, you took your first step. It's pretty good, but you still got a long way to go. Don't get too big of an ego over this. But with the end of that stanza, it almost sounds like it's a backhanded compliment. Yeah, you did good this one time, but don't let it get to your head, dude. You're not that good. That's the kind of way I feel it with that final line there, saying that you were never good enough. So, I don't know. That first stanza, I'm having a real hard time reconciling with the rest of this, but overall, I think this has a very powerful message to it. Trying to pair it back to the music, though, I don't really have a strong read on that one. What I get out of the music has elements of darkness to it, has elements of light to it. I can kind of see both of them in here, but like I said, this kind of feels like a pep talk, a little bit of some tough love, and I don't really get that element out of the music. So, and then the ending being overbearing and weighty, while presumably the lyrics are you deserve better, you need a radical change, you need to switch up your tactics and basically go about this a different way. Assuming that those are the right lyrics. I mean, maybe I'm reading the wrong lyrics for the finale, but I mean that's there's only 6 lines after that. That has to be in it. But I don't feel any of that in the super weighty part either. That seems to be pure encouragement right there. So it's going to wrap up my thoughts on the Ocean's Atlantic. Let me know what you thought of this song. If there's anything that stood out to you, anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on, maybe you have your own interpretation or opinion on this song, please put all of that and any other thoughts you have down into the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.